You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Going to live react to the college football playoff rankings. Yes, I know that Ole Miss has a slim to none chance of getting in there, but I am curious of how it goes and how it affects the SEC teams that are involved. We're going to have Mike Huesmann joining the show as well to have his opinion on things. He's a South Carolina guy, by the way. But you can start the season off with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win that first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. So let's go to Mike Huesmann and see what's up. Now, Mike, this is my take on what's going on. And this week has jaded me a little bit, especially with Brad Crawford relentlessly promoting South Carolina essentially over the last 3 days.
Yep.
But I'm of the point, and I've said this from the very beginning, there are 11 teams that are deserving of a playoff berth right now. And there are 4 teams that are fighting for one spot, even though none of them deserve it. And what we're going to likely have is a beauty pageant, a popularity contest, and everybody knows when Alabama is going against you in a popularity contest, you don't win it. So Ole Miss and South Carolina and Miami fans, they're just kind of twiddling their thumbs right now.
100% agree. I think that's what the case is going to be, and I really believe after last weekend we will only get one ACC team in, and there's a strong likelihood Alabama will be that last team that gets in.
Yeah, and the one thing that I think would be honestly a fitting end that would save the committee a little bit in this situation would be Clemson winning the ACC title and SMU staying in.
I was going to say, when you were talking about that, there's 11 deserving teams and the next 4 are kind of battling it out. SMU becomes an interesting 5th team in there if they lose the game. I don't think they'll get in, but I would like to see it.
Yeah, they're 11-1 going into. They're in the same boat that Indiana is in right now.
Yeah.
And you kind of just are what you are at this point.
Yeah.
But this is ridiculous. This is only a 30-minute preview show. Memphis is coming in at number 25, by the way. Memphis made it into the top 25.
Okay.
That's pretty
By the way, if people are seeing my handle there, they do a lot of coaching carousel stuff. Ryan Silverfield, I think, is a guy that we could see mentioned for some bigger jobs this offseason while we're talking about Memphis.
Yeah, there's a rumor that he might end up at North Carolina. I think that the name has been banned, is going about. Army 24, Colorado 23, Syracuse 22. Syracuse into the top 25.
Yeah.
Which means that SMU, did they play Syracuse this year?
They did not.
Okay.
I don't think.
Illinois at 21.
Okay.
Yeah, Syracuse coming in makes the ACC case look a little bit better if Clemson played them or if SMU did. UNLV's at number 20. All of this is making perfect sense right now. And honestly, we're just waiting to see how the SEC teams are set up.
Yeah.
And this one, Missouri's at number 19.
Syracuse losses are Stanford, Pittsburgh, Boston College, and that's it. So, yeah, they've not played. They beat Miami, didn't play anybody else. Oh, actually, they beat UNLV, which is a relevant win at this point.
UNLV is number 20.
Okay. And they're in. UNLV's in with the win. Whoever wins the Mountain West is getting in.
Yes. BYU at number 18. Clemson at number 17. They fell 5 spots after losing to Carolina.
That's probably fair. Yep.
Now we are probably on Ole Miss watch at this point, either 16, 15, or 14, I think. I think South Carolina is going to end up jumping Ole Miss, but they're not going to jump Alabama.
My thought is the 4 in a row will be Ole Miss, South Carolina, Miami, then Bama.
Iowa State, number 16. So Ole Miss will finish the regular season in the top 15 of the college football playoff rankings at least, but we're now at the point where we are on watch to see exactly what happens.
Okay.
And I imagine that once every Arizona State number 15. So I think Ole Miss was 14 last week. So they were 13 last week. So this is right about that time. And
were they 13? I was thinking they were 14 for some reason.
South Carolina was behind them. Maybe South Carolina was 15.
Yes, they were, I think.
And they're still South Carolina 14th, the bottom of the SEC teams. They did not jump Ole Miss or Alabama.
It's tough to see. It's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate for them, but whenever you look at the rules of the selection committee, number 2 on that list is head-to-head.
Is that selection committee or was that SEC stuff?
No, that was selection committee. That was selection committee. Number 1 was actually strength of schedule that they weren't doing.
Okay.
Ole Miss number 13, that is roughly 2 spots out of it, and the decision is going to come down to, is Miami 12 or is Miami 11? Whichever one's 11 is probably in.
I feel like Miami's going to be 12. But...
Yeah, and if they're not, if Miami is the number 11 team and in the playoff with Clemson still left to go, I'm telling you, it could be a weird year. There's some weirdness that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, that would leave the door open for 2 ACC teams to get in.
Miami's 12. So Alabama is number 11, and surprise, surprise, Alabama sneaks into the playoff, potentially. Yeah. The only thing that's probably going to keep Alabama out is Clemson beating SMU and SMU getting in over them.
Yeah, and I see that as unlikely. Not the Clemson could easily win. I think that game could go either way. I don't see the losers, SMU losing and staying ahead of Bama.
Yeah, you have a situation with anybody in the country that if you're in a beauty contest with Alabama, if you are in a popularity contest with Alabama, you are not going to win that. You're just not. It doesn't matter. I'm just glad that the committee respected the head-to-head. Beating South Carolina by 4 scores, they had a chance for that to get very weird. And I realize that South Carolina's as hot as anybody right now, but it is a 12-game sample size, and that game matters because everybody points to Ole Miss against Kentucky, but the week after that was the Ole Miss South Carolina game.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. And honestly, all 3 of those SEC teams are majorly flawed teams and probably have ways that you can say they don't deserve to be there. So we'll see exactly what happens. Anyway, when we come back, we will talk about the top 10 on the playoff rankings and see what's going on with the playoff poll as a whole. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Do you hate the team that you drafted in your season-long fantasy league, or maybe your fantasy football season is already over, but you want to stay in the action? Don't worry. Better Together is here to change the game. Better Together is the first ever cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork beats talent. Instead of competing against your friends, you play with them. Here's how it works. Pick more or less on real-time player stats. Team up with your friends and strategize your way to the top of the leaderboard. It's like turning your group chat into a winning fantasy team, only this time you're working together instead of talking trash. I've already joined the Locked On CFB Saturday Games contest, and it's so much fun breaking down the stats and making picks with a buddy. Plus, it's a great way to stay connected with friends, even when you can't watch games together in person. Better Together takes the social experience of sports to the next level. It's all about camaraderie. Playing daily fantasy alone is fun, but it's so much better with friends, and you get to prove your group chat is smart and is the best at climbing the leaderboard together. So download Better Together on the App Store and sign up using the promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, for a free $10 entry into any NCAA football or NFL contest. Come play with me at Locked On CFB Saturday Games contest this Saturday. Remember the code Locked On, all one word, because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. All right, Mike, it looks like number 10 is Boise, number 9 is Indiana, and number 8, moving up to 8, is SMU. So they're sitting pretty right now, almost even if they take a loss. I genuinely think that if South Carolina or Southern Methodist loses, they fall only as low as 11. As long as it's a close game. Now, they can't get boat race.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't see either team in that game blowing out the other one.
And the hilarious thing is, and we were looking at these rankings all along the lines, Tennessee's number 7, by the way. It's almost guaranteed that there's going to be 2 SEC teams hosting.
Yeah. Well, so, yeah, because I don't know if Georgia hosts if they lose. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it gets weird, but I do not think Georgia's going to lose a lot of that.
They might not. No, in fact, I picked them to win. But if they would lose, Tennessee might be the only one that hosts.
Ohio State only falling 4 spots after losing that game against Michigan is a travesty. They should not be ahead of Tennessee. They're number 6. Ohio State should have fallen.
I don't have a problem with them being ahead of Tennessee. They do have some good wins. Penn State's a legit team. They beat them.
Yeah. Is that one good win? I guess if you count
much
Indiana, Indiana's on the list as
you
well.
Have to. You have to. Yeah.
And Georgia's 5. I think Georgia's in a good spot. Notre Dame into the top 4, although they cannot get a bye. No matter what happens and no matter where Notre Dame gets ranked, they have to play in the play-in round. Yeah,
and they will. Them and Tennessee, I think, are assured of hosting games.
Yes. And
Ohio State probably is too at this point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Notre Dame, the Georgia-Texas game, a loser potentially. Ohio State and Tennessee is probably your 4 hosts.
Wait. So I don't. The Big Ten loser hosts the game too. Oregon or Penn State will be a host.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So Penn State, Notre Dame, Georgia, and that means that
and I think
Tennessee's on the road.
Tennessee, Ohio State, either one. Like we could see one of those two going to the other.
Yeah. I want to see Ohio State end up at Tennessee. I think Neyland is going to be absolutely electric for this football game.
And I think Beaver Stadium, if Penn State has a night playoff game, that place is going to be electric too.
Yeah, that'll be the true whiteout that they've been craving for a while.
I'm super low on Ohio State. We talked about this before. Their O-line is so beat up. I'm not convinced they can beat any of these good teams anymore.
Yeah, and I agree with you, honestly, on that one. Yeah, Ohio State, is Tennessee traveling to Ohio State right now, I think.
I also think we might see the numbers now. I do think next week when we have the final announcement, the committee will jerry-rig it so we're not going to see any same conference matchups in the opening round. They'll make it so, we'll see Big Ten versus SEC. We won't see SEC versus SEC or Big Ten versus Big Ten.
I want to see that Tennessee-Ohio State game. They had Notre Dame hosting Alabama.
Everybody, especially in SEC country, I've learned, people love to dog Notre Dame. They're a dangerous team this year. Their defensive backs are really good. They're running the ball on everybody. They could beat anybody in a given game.
Do you think that this is the game? I have a theory about the Big Ten after the Ohio State-Michigan game. I have a theory that they're not as good. The only reason they were viewed as good is because everybody thought Ohio State was an elite team. So Oregon was okay because they beat an elite team. Penn State was where they are because they almost they played close to an elite team. Indiana is still ranked because of the Ohio State factor. They were kind of holding up that whole conference. But if that isn't true, do you think this is a game that Penn State can get Oregon?
Absolutely. I think Penn State's a team that can beat anybody on their day. They're good.
Yeah. I'm wondering
if Penn State and Ohio State played today, Penn State would beat them, I believe.
Yeah, because I'm beginning to wonder how good Oregon actually is. Because they had the Ohio State game and not a lot else.
No, you're definitely right about that.
Yeah.
To their credit, though, they're the one team who's taken care of business every time they've been out on the field. They're on offense. They're doing good things in the run game and the pass game. on defense, they've only allowed over 20 points twice the whole season. That's impressive, whoever you're playing. Like, there aren't many weaknesses on them that we know of. Granted, on paper, Texas doesn't have many weaknesses, and we've seen them look terrible at times too.
You look at the games like the Tennessee or Ohio State game would be the 8-9 game.
Yep.
And the winner of that gets Oregon in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
So either way, that is shaping up to be a pretty fantastic matchup.
The other thing I think hasn't happened yet but will happen next weekend, I would not be surprised if the Big 12 winner hops the Mountain West winner and gets that last bye.
I would not be surprised at that as well, because you have a situation with Arizona State, especially if Arizona State wins that game.
Exactly.
There'll be an 11-win team going at it, Big 12 champion. It was a Power 4. Arizona State is legitimately good.
They're
and
playing,
since
they're playing
since
well.
Ole Miss is where they are, and it's kind of a bridge too far for Ole Miss to make the playoffs, you're starting to look as like, which team do I want to root for? Arizona State's probably that team for me. I enjoy watching Arizona State.
Yeah. Honestly, it's weird. Like, if I know, so I'm under the impression South Carolina and Ole Miss will not be there. Yeah. For whatever reason, I kind of will be rooting for Tennessee and Notre Dame of all teams. Like, I want to see those two teams play. Not necessarily see them win the title. I want to watch them play all these good teams because of how they're made up.
Man, if I was an Alabama fan right now, I'd be scared to death of that matchup with Notre Dame.
Well,
because Notre Dame has so much frustration that they want to take out on Alabama specifically.
Yeah.
And you get a home game. And Alabama, against Oklahoma, they scored 3 points. Notre Dame can play a little bit of defense.
Yeah.
And they have the ability to really make this game a slog and a struggle for Alabama offensively.
And no matter who Notre Dame's playing, if they get in front and you have to throw on them, good luck, because their D-backs are legit.
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem with Alabama because they don't throw on anybody anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But that also means, say we have an Alabama-Tennessee rematch, Tennessee's built perfectly on D to handle Alabama like we saw before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a situation to where they have enough athletes on the field to handle Alabama's quarterback run game. Because that's what it is, explosive plays and quarterback run. If you can handle that, you can beat Alabama. Ask Oklahoma.
Penn State's another team that matches up decently well against Bama on defense.
That Arizona State-Penn State game, if it happened, even in Happy Valley, that's a game that Arizona State would win. I honestly think that feels like a James Franklin special.
That's the variable there is is he going to be in his own head? Yeah. Mm-hmm. The other one, whoever loses the SEC title game, I'll be curious if they get 5 or 6. Like, is Notre Dame going to be ahead of whoever loses the SEC title game? And the Big Ten, where that Texas-Georgia loser slots in is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like, right now, is Georgia 6 right now? 5?
5. They're 5.
Okay.
But they're behind Notre Dame, so they're, for all intents and purposes,
that's fair. Yeah.
They're 7th, I think. Because they're behind Notre Dame and Penn State.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
Yeah.
And if Oregon loses, they drop, they're essentially 5. They're the highest rated team that's hosting if Oregon loses.
Yeah, so Notre Dame would drop down 1. Then you'd have the Texas-Georgia game. And then Ohio State, that feels weird. Like
it does,
where they are, you can't really drop them because they lost to Oregon. So if Oregon wins the Big Ten championship, you're not going to drop Ohio State. If Penn State wins the Big Ten championship, you just beat the Big Ten champion in the game. So you're not getting dropped.
Yeah.
So Ohio State's kind of where they are.
And the weird scenario record-wise, kind of like we've talked about, happens if Georgia loses. Do they drop below Ohio State? It's a very interesting question.
All right, when we come back, we will wrap up this ranking show with your viewer comments. Don't forget to comment and put where you're commenting from. I am genuinely interested in that, but stick around. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book because right now new customers can get bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Texas is like a 1.5 to 2 point favorite over Georgia in the SEC championship game. That's just a weird situation to me. I think something clicked in the second half of that Georgia Tech game, and especially in overtime. And you saw a different looking Georgia team. So we'll see if that carries over against Sark and the Longhorns this weekend. When you get a hunch like that in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and college football in one place. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Mike, let's take some viewer questions. Beth Hammock is a new member on YouTube. Thank you, Beth, for joining us very much. But these are some questions that are coming through people's mind, and obviously this is going to be Ole Miss-centric questions, so just be wary of that.
I like your viewers are pretty knowledgeable compared with a lot of the people I see on Twitter. I will say that.
Yeah, definitely more than Brad Crawford. Brad Crawford, you know what? If South Carolina does not make the playoffs, it's not going to be because Brad Crawford loafed. It is.
That's fair. That's fair.
He did everything he could do to put every stat out there. So, yeah.
And I love it. He is fighting the good fight, if you ask me. But, I believe you.
Yeah. It's just one of those things I said. It's like, in no world, honestly, does a team make it over two teams that beat them, because it wasn't just Ole Miss. I could understand if they just jumped Ole Miss. You had to jump Ole Miss and Bama, and at that point, you're not jumping two, and you're definitely not jumping Bama because that just doesn't happen. Saints fan says it's all about who can make more money, and that is Bama. I had a commenter, by the way, in one of my videos this week that said, I live in L.A., and in the sporting goods store, there's merchandise for Alabama.
Yeah.
That tells you everything you need to know. They make money on that.
I've been a lot of places in the country, and Alabama, Notre Dame are the two teams you see merchandise for everywhere.
Yeah. Stephen Russell says Ole Miss would beat Miami by 3 scores, especially the way they're playing defense right now. Cam Ward is really good, though. He is really, really good. So it might be closer just because that offense can score a little bit.
Yeah.
They're all on Miami at the moment. The committee hates Ole Miss, and it pisses me off. I
don't think they hate them. No, they're not rated ridiculously low. Like, where they're rated is reasonable.
Yeah, you lost to Kentucky. It's like I said, there's 11 teams that are completely deserving of a playoff, and they would have a real argument if they didn't show up on the list. And there were 4 teams fighting for one spot, and those 4 teams are all extremely flawed.
Yeah.
So something had to be overlooked.
And the other loss, like for both Ole Miss and South Carolina, the Ole Miss team, or the LSU team they lost to, was playing a lot better then than it is now. LSU was pretty good when they were playing them.
Yeah. The LSU now, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And the funny thing to argue with South Carolina, like Chris, I'm about to record the squad show with Chris Marler, Locked On Squad, and he's the Locked On Gamecock host. And he's already said he's going to rail on me and all that. And it's like, no, I'm not saying that Ole Miss deserved the playoff. I'm saying you deserved less. That is a different argument.
Yeah.
Let's see. Willis says it's just weird that they picked behind Alabama, but ahead of Ole Miss and South Carolina to put Miami. Yeah, it's because in a popularity contest.
I figured that would happen, but you're right. Yeah.
In a popularity contest, ask Florida State, Alabama wins.
Yeah.
Brandon Tyler said, could any movement happen to get the Rebels up 2 spot? Maybe with blowouts this weekend? No, it's over.
No, it's over.
Yeah. You can move up 1 spot with Georgia winning the SEC title, but you're not going to move up 2, and you're not going to jump a team that also beat Georgia. It's just not going to happen. And Alabama's not going to go up at all.
At most, you jump SMU. That's about it. Nobody else is dropping.
Probably the peak will be ranked 12th, which in a 12-team playoff, everybody's going, last team out. But
where was Arizona State to that? 14.
Yeah, there was
15.
somewhere around there. They have a chance to get in the top 12.
Yeah, I'm saying if they win by a ton and dominate Iowa State, they potentially could jump a couple teams.
Yes. K-Tackett says Ole Miss must not have the money Bama does or bring in the money Bama does. That is absolutely correct. You do not win popularity contests with Alabama. Tucker Johnson says, is there any chance Ole Miss could move up a placement? No.
One spot maybe. That's it.
Yeah. David Gibson says Ole Miss can't move up. The SEC and Big Ten winner won't be out.
That is accurate. Yes.
Moments of Truth's podcast. What has to happen now for Ole Miss to get in? A good season next year.
Yep. Stick a fork in it. That pipe dream is done.
Yeah, it's over. It's bowl season officially. And Laverne Kendrick says, is there any chance we get in after the championship games? No, there's not. No. There's a lot of these questions on there. Obviously, they were asking there. Jason Withers, one more week of games, and we're right at the door. I think after that, no, there's no chance.
There can't. It's like those talks about the chaos. There can't be a lot of chaos because a lot of the teams playing are locked in no matter what.
Yeah. Den Crenshaw says, how can you say Bama is a better team than Ole Miss? That's not what I said. Nobody said that.
Yeah.
Nobody said that. I just said you're not going to win a popularity contest with them. Ask Florida State.
Yeah.
I do not think Alabama is better than, and I think if Ole Miss and Alabama played on a neutral field right now, Ole Miss would probably win the game.
Out of the four, those four, Bama, Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina, probably 2 or 3 of them are playing better than Alabama right now. But you're going against the brand.
Yeah. That is a big brand. You can't, because this playoff at the end, there is that root cause that they want to make money. They do. And that's always going to be there. It can't be altruistic. Donna Taylor says, you can't say Bama is better than Ole Miss. 3 games we lost by a total of 12. I didn't say Bama was better than Ole Miss. I never said Bama was better than Ole Miss. I said that you're not winning a popularity contest with Alabama. You're just not. And Donna says, I forgot to say I'm watching from Brandon, Mississippi. Thank you very much, Donna. I do not think Alabama is better than Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss would beat them head up. But you're not winning a beauty pageant with Alabama. You're just not. Does this mean we play Miami in a bowl game? Sean Neeson, no, that is not true because there are no NY6 bowl games now.
Yep.
You have basically the Citrus that's going to have a pick of their favorite one. And honestly, Mike, the South Carolina fan base, they're going to be deflated after this campaign they did. It is going to be where they were expecting to do it. They were completely in it. Yep. I think it's a situation that the Citrus would have taken South Carolina because they would have been all in.
Yep.
Now that might not be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I will be very curious how South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Miami travel to bowl games because Miami historically does not travel well to away games anyway.
Yeah. This is Alabama's swan song. You're absolutely correct there, Alan Beck. Nor deserving, but the name still has sway over the committee. The shine will be gone after this year. This kind of feels like the Alabama death throes.
I think Kalen DeBoer is an elite coach and will keep them relevant.
I think that unless he finds the right quarterback for his system, the coach at Alabama is always going to be relevant. But what they were compared to what they were.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're reliving the Nick Saban years. They will be a contender to be a playoff team a good amount of years.
Gene Stallings era. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
The projected bowl game opponent, I've seen the Liberty Bowl of all places for Ole Miss. I've seen the Las Vegas Bowl a couple of times for Ole Miss. And I've seen the Music City Bowl. The bowl scenario is weird.
It is very.
Ole Miss is not going to be a popular bowl team. But the good news for Ole Miss fans is it's likely Austin Simmons seasons.
Yeah.
And
where did they? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Where did they play Penn State last year? Was that New Orleans?
Peach Bowl.
Oh, Peach.
Atlanta.
Okay. I was thinking it was okay.
Right.
I'm excited to see Simmons play in a bowl game. Absolutely.
Josh from Taylor. Okay, he says I think the comments about Bama being better than Ole Miss are directed at the committee, not you. Okay, that makes sense because I know I didn't say that, but. Yeah, it's the committee, just the logo, the numbers on the side of the helmet and the logo gets the benefit of the doubt right now. And like I said, it's one of those situations. SMU is 11-1. If they lose to Clemson, it's going to be a fight to see if they stay in the playoffs because Alabama is sitting in the last spot in. No matter who you're going against Alabama is like the worst case scenario. That's Florida State last year.
We won't see any of it, but the wheelings and dealings next week that the SMU boosters will be doing in back rooms is wild.
Yeah.
If they lose.
I had a buddy come visit me this week, and he was talking about it. He's like, yeah, everybody talks about all the money that A&M and Texas has. SMU's the richest school in that state.
That's wild, yeah.
And it's like all of the Texas A&M are like oil CEOs. Well, the SMU guys are the ones that own the oil companies. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, I got you. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Mike Huesmann from Mike Farrell Sports joins the show. We'll have you on next week to talk a little transfer portal because there's some interesting stuff happening going into the transfer portal week already. And
shortly before we got on, Noah Fafita, Arizona quarterback, entered the portal.
Yeah, I've heard rumors of Auburn for him potentially.
Yeah.
And Prince Will Amon-Mielen got in there, and he is Princely's brother. So we'll have to see what happens there as well. So we'll talk about that next week on the Tuesday live stream. But thank you very much, Mike, for joining us. And everybody, we'll see everybody later. Hotty Toddy.
See you guys.